done quite a few things, but that's all I wanted to do, was share the journey so far and just say this is what we've done, here's some ideas, because I think, like the KHD has shown us today, when it comes to wellbeing, it's the best practice is to share. Here's what works really well in our school, what works well in your school, and we all share the ideas together. So I always like to start when I ask teachers and educators and things, why did you get into teaching? And I know that the answers are never data, inspection, all the different things like that. So I want you to have a think about, why did you become a teacher, an educator? Why are you involved in schools? Just for a moment. Would anyone like to share? I can share with you first. Basically, I had to have a real good think about this question, like why did I get into teaching, you know? And I thought the main thing for me is I wanted to just be involved with children and the joy that they have for everything, you know? They see the world in such a different way and there's so much fun around it, and I wanted to just be part of that and use the creativity that you sometimes can lose as an adult and, you know, live that through the children. So for me, it was just helping make a difference with children and be part of their joy. So is there any other reasons that anyone would like to share? Anyone?
I always really enjoyed school, so I thought that kind of impacted my decision to become a teacher.
Yeah, that's a lovely one actually. I'm sure we can all think of that one teacher that we looked at and thought, actually, I could do that too. They've inspired you so much and you enjoyed their teaching and everything the way they were. So that's a lovely one. You enjoyed school. Is there any others? Yeah.
I'm a social worker. I'm a social worker at this school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a part of my personality to help people and to offer, and I'm a good listener. That's why I like to be with kids and listen to them and know what are their needs and how can I support them.
Oh, nice. That's a lovely one as well. So again, there's that element of wellness and well-being and helping and offering and giving. So there's so many of our journeys, I'm sure, have got parts of that in it. You know, that's part of the reason why we wanted to be. So I think it's really important to always reflect back on why we do that and why we're here. So the first thing is, you know, we hear this word well-being so much, particularly now, and I'm obviously really pleased about it. The KHD are running with it. But I had to sit and think about really what is well-being for me. Hi, how are you? So can you just take a little moment and what's your well-being? Think about what your well-being is, you know, not what we're told and different things, but think about for you, what is your well-being? Can anyone share with me? Hi, how are you? It's all right. Hi.
Yeah, I think for me it's just being content with what you've got around you.
Yeah.
Whether it's physical, spiritual, material, emotional. And that sense of being content, that we all try to seek that contentment.
Yeah.
Very, very cheaply.
Exactly, that's so interesting actually. It's like everyone wants to be happy and be content, and often they call it the hedonic treadmill. There's often, I'll be happy when I get that job, or I'll be happy when I get home, or I'll be happy then. So you're right, it's a feeling of contentment now, isn't it? Thanks for that. Is there anyone else that wants to share? Hi.
I guess being the best version of myself, I can be for myself and others. I believe everything, you know, happiness, fulfillment comes from achieving that.
Yeah, lovely. That's a great one. The best version of you. There is a really lovely exercise called Best Possible Self, and actually I think that is, if you're living your best life, then the people around you also experience that, you know. So there's lots of different versions of it. I'm sure everyone has a different take on well-being, but I had to sit and think about what is it for me, and it's a bit like Dr. Abdullah was saying, I was getting so caught up in doing, I wasn't really thinking about me as a being. So for me, my being is well, wholly, physically, mentally, everything around me is well. You know, there's no dis-ease or disorder through my day-to-day living. And there's many different variables that add to that, you know, that help you feel well. So I'm sure you've heard of Martin Seligman. Does anyone recognise his name? Martin Seligman's written countless books and research on happiness and positive psychology. He's called the father of positive psychology. If you haven't heard of him, have a look at some of his work. It's really, really interesting. So positive psychology is something that I've been studying recently for a master's degree while trying to teach year one, so it's a bit of a struggle sometimes. But Martin Seligman for me is the one that's opened my eyes to it all, so this is how our journey started. His definition is really lovely because, like he says up here, it's just like the weather and freedom in its structure, because there's no single way to measure it. There's lots of different variables, like the elements, and those things can be measurable. So can I just have a show of hands at who completed the adult wellbeing survey in your school? Yeah, so basically there's a lady, Michelle McQuaid, who created the PERMA H survey. And there's another lady, Peggy Kern, that's got her own kind of version, and it's actually personal to you. So although you've done the adult wellbeing survey, and it's collective in a school and it tells you what you can do for your well-being, if you scan this QR code, there's a questionnaire that you can go on, and it just is another kind of questionnaire that's just personal to you, out with work. It's just talking about those things that Martin Seligman mentioned, PERMA. So you can measure positive emotion, engagement, positive relationships, meaning and accomplishment. So it's just something, again, when I think about well-being, and now in this day and age that we live in with all the science and stuff that there is, then you can start to measure that, start your own journey. Where am I just now? Where am I going to go? Where do I want to go next? So that's always a nice one. Again, Alejandro Adler is another researcher who worked really closely with Martin Seligman. He was actually here a couple of years ago, or a year ago or so, in the KHDA, presenting about his work that he's done so far. And this is one that I love to kind of share with management of schools, because his research shows that wellbeing curriculums, or children that experience wellbeing education, perform higher academically. So it's always a good selling point, it's just worth noting. So his research was in Bhutan, Mexico and Peru, and they had samples where one group went through a wellbeing curriculum, the other group didn't, and then it talks about how they performed in standardised tests and everything, which obviously isn't the main goal, but again, it's just worth noting. Here are some byproducts of caring about wellbeing of children and staff. So his research is really lovely. Also, I had some grids up here before, but they look a bit boring. But when you look at it, the information is really lovely. It measured the children like 15 months later or something, after they stopped the wellbeing curriculum, and they still came out in higher in subjective wellbeing than the other control group, even though they weren't going through the curriculum anymore. So the interesting part for me is it sustains, and it's because they've been given these strategies and things to work with that they flourish. So I wanted to include some logos up here. The shift is something that I feel that's been happening in Dubai, especially for the last year or two. Like the other What Works in 2016, when they were talking about happiness and everything. But now we're starting to notice well-being and happiness everywhere. Even if you look at, you pay your DEWA bill and there's a smiley face, was this happy? Or, it's getting you thinking about it. There's a huge dialogue now between all different industries, but particularly in education. So you think about the Institute of Positive Education. Has anyone heard of those? So David Bott from Geelong Grammar School is doing a talk in the second session. I would totally recommend going to hear about his talks, because it talks about the wellbeing journey for 10 years in a school in Geelong in Australia. And Martin Seligman basically piloted this wellbeing curriculum there 10 years ago. So it's worth going to hear his talk as well. Hi, it's all right. So the Institute of Positive Education are coming here to Dubai. So again, please note that for your schools, because they're really useful in helping you with training, which is a huge part of the journey. So we've not had that effectively in our school yet. It's just me popping my head round the door and just talking about it all the time and giving ideas. But there is training now becoming available. So the Institute of Positive Education. What Works event like this, there's huge shifts happening in the KHDA. And I want to this picture is 4 little girls in my class playing Emotion Snap, because I wanted to show this is how it filters right down to 6-year-olds. So now they are talking about words that they've never used before, like joy, disgust, and anger. And they're being able to talk about what those emotions feel like through mindfulness, what they look like, different things. So there's some real lovely conversations to be had, especially with the little ones. And even in some FS1 classes, there's a lot of information about emotions and things like that. So you can start really at the lower end of the school. So one of the things that you probably are looking for from this talk with me today is, what can we do? How can we start the wellbeing journey? And I would like to say as well that we are still very much in the beginning stages, which is why I just wanted to share with you, here's what we've done so far. This might be useful for you, it might work, it might not, but it's just all part of the movement. So something that we started in our school, or we did in our school maybe last year, was kind of a wellbeing audit, and it sounds all serious and horrible like an inspection, but it's not. It's just basically some of us sat down and thought, right, what have we got going on just now? We've got mindfulness in a couple of classes, we've got children talking about things through moral education, we've got things happening in social studies, global citizenship. So there was lots of different pockets of things. So what we did is we started together and had a conversation about where are we, and it was just one big bit of paper and everybody kind of wrote it down. So that's the simplest way, you know, and I'm sure people are doing things like that anyway, but sometimes it's nice just to see a kind of clear structure. So I would always recommend, you know, start your wellbeing journey by identifying in the school who really loves this stuff, we all care about the children's wellbeing and the staff wellbeing, but who are those team members within the staff that would really love to be part of it and help it flourish and help it grow. What would come next for children, staff and parents, and identify a team. So we never really had a pastoral team up until recently. We had someone who was looking at pastoral, we had someone for child protection, you know, different little pockets throughout the school. So we decided to, let's have a strong pastoral team that encompasses all elements of these things that we're talking about. Is there anyone that has a pastoral team already in school? Yeah, there's a couple. And, you know, pastoral's always a, hi, please come in. Pastoral's always a huge thing that, please come in. No, you're fine. I'm glad there's more people. It's fine. Just please come in. Hi. You're fine. Hi. Hi. Okay, thanks.
There are no seats because people ask if the session is full.
There's a few, yeah, there's a few. Is that all right? Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's probably the first step. If you've already got a pastoral team and things like that, you know, we're still trying to figure out the journey of the pastoral team. You know, nothing has to be set in stone. It's what works for you. So the main thing I would do is start looking at who wants to be involved. And it's really interesting, actually, what Dr. Abdullah was saying earlier. It's not just about, you know, well-being of the children and then well-being of staff. It's well-being in the community. So this term, multidimensional flourishing, it's kind of haunted me for a while because it was an essay I had to write a few months ago and it's still here, but so valuable and I loved it. Multidimensional flourishing is actually how the communities can flourish as a whole. Because if you think a lot of positive psychology and well-being initiatives, it tends to focus solely on an individual and a person, and not, there's some of them, but the majority of them are individual, whereas there's so many opportunities for flourishing as a community, flourishing as a school, flourishing as staff. So have a look at things on multidimensional flourishing. Is also a really nice place, and that can be beginning with your pastoral team, you know, and you think about, as a community, where can we go next? So has anyone heard of the VIA character strengths? Some of you, yeah. So I was really lucky to go and visit GEM's Modern Academy recently, and I love that they've got things like this all throughout their school. There's boards everywhere talking about character strengths. It's a real language that's starting to be present throughout the school. And it's something I came across in my studies, and as a year one teacher, I'm always thinking, right, how can I get this right down to the little kids in the primary school? How can I have resources and things like that that they can, you know, use and begin developing themselves? So I'd just like to show you a little video that I made about them. If you're not familiar with them, this is a really brief kind of rundown. So the character strengths are lovely because everybody in this room has the same character strengths. You know, there's 24 of them. You might be stronger in one, and some other strengths might be lower down the list, but it doesn't mean it's a weakness. It's still a strength. It just means that you could work on it a little bit more. So one of my top, when you can do the, I'll show you the link to it later. On the VIA Character Strength website, you can actually do a questionnaire and it'll list your strengths for you, which is lovely. So it was really nice for me to see that appreciation of beauty and excellence is one of my top strengths. And I thought, well, that fits because I just love, you know, art, but I also love like stopping and looking at a flower or, you know, just little things, you appreciate it. One of my lower strengths was self-regulation, going to the gym, eating well, those kind of things. So I thought, well, there it is. That's something that I want to strengthen. So if you think about all the different ways you can use that within your school, if the children all have this common language to talk about their strengths, how many times do you hear children say, oh, I can't do it, or I'm not good at this? You know, but if you're talking about, no, but use your strength of perseverance, you use your strength of perseverance and we'll work this out together. It's a language that can work really well between even really young children and some of the older ones. And always refer back to the class that I have now, but the 5-year-olds in my class are now using words like self-control, perseverance, and they'll come to me and say, I've just used my strength of kindness, or she's just used her strength of whatever, you know. So there's lots of value in it. And what I wanted to do was, if we've got time, I think we probably have a few minutes, what I wanted to do was translate the strengths into a resource that teachers could use. So I made these character strengths cards and we introduced them firstly to staff. So what we did was had all the staff sitting around the year groups together and they had to spot strengths in each other, you know, and say, I actually think that you've got a real strength of hope, you know, and how lovely it was to see people share the strengths that they see in each other and then use mindfulness to talk about how did you feel when someone said that you were really kind, you know. And even though we think about this for children, if you think about that for you, we very often put all the focus and everything onto the children, you know, but how often do we step back and think about ourselves, you know. So, and we are part of it. Our well-being is equally as important. So just maybe for a couple of minutes, what we could do, or maybe at the end, I'll pass them along the tables and you can have a look through and think about how would you use that resource in your school, you know. Think about whatever part you're in. I know you're a social worker, if there's different year groups and things like that, you can talk about how could I use the character strengths in my group. So again, that would be another activity for your school if you were starting your wellbeing journey. Think about the character strengths. Can you translate that language into everyday life? Can the parents start using it? Actually, there's a really lovely book. The KHD brought Leah Waters, Professor Leah Waters, Strength-Based Parenting. Has anyone heard it before? It's a brilliant book, and she just talks about the character strengths in terms of being a parent, but obviously there's lots you can translate into being an educator or working within schools. So she's a great one. The VIA Institute, who does all the research, are fantastic. They're like charity based, as in it's all free online for you to use. There's lots of things that you can do with the children. The characterlab.com, that's another one. Angela Duckworth has got loads of free resources. So there's a massive amount out there that you can begin with your school already. Mindfulness. Now this is a huge one in schools. Can anyone show me if your school practices mindfulness already? Some. Can I ask what it looks like? Is it like every class, every day, or just teachers that do it sometimes? Or?
We do it as an extracurricular activity.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, good. What about yourself?
We have it as part of our guidance curriculum, so we do it right now half an hour a week.
Really? Okay.
But we intertwine with themes like the environment provides, which last month was sustainability, mindfulness towards environment,
Okay.
and currently innovation, mindfulness towards technology, online time.
Brilliant.
Habits.
Oh, good. See, that's a really lovely example of how, you know, you can fit it into the curriculum, because at the moment we've got so many things that are happening and sometimes you feel like it's hard to fit in. There are loads of ways to start mindfulness, because basically in our school that's kind of how it started. I'd started doing it in my classroom, spoke with my friend, why don't you try this? This is how, I explained it, and then it kind of got a little bit bigger. We don't have it timetabled in. I know desks have got 10 minutes timetable each morning where the children, the whole school, practice mindfulness, which is a great start. And also there's lots of barriers like people's confidence. You might not understand it enough. You might feel like I'm not confident enough to teach it yet or explain it to the children. I don't practice myself, so how can I practice with the children? But I would always say there are so many ways to begin, and the value is massive. There's just so much science to talk about the benefits of mindful practice for children and adults. So that's something else that there's a lot of information online. And also at the end I've got like my social media things. Please get in touch if there's ever you'd like any ideas or anything, and I'd love to hear your ideas too. But I have got a little video of my class now. You'll have to forgive me if I can't get it to work properly. The other thing I'd ask, if you don't mind, please not to film this video, just because the permissions are for here. Because there's children in it, I don't have permissions otherwise. So if you wouldn't mind not recording it, thanks. Oh no, it's not showing up there. Sorry, it'll just be a second. Hi. Oh. I'm coming to help. Oh. Sorry, I can't actually get it to work. But basically what it is 1 minute it takes to use a triangle is what I use to signal. This is our mindful minute. Is going to start now. And I hit it 4 times, and then whatever the children are doing, they stop, drop everything, put it down, and they just breathe. So sometimes I'll do a guided meditation. I'll just say things, take 3 deep breaths, keep your eyes closed, and then maybe do a small body scan. What does it feel like in your feet? What can you feel in your tummy? Different things, and it literally takes 1 minute. And then the bells ring again, and then that's it. So that's something that's really easy to implement throughout the day. It doesn't need to be always, at the start of the day or the end of the day. Sometimes you can use it after lessons to transition, help children calm. But then again, when they're starting really young, then you can build on that and talk about, well, actually, there's so much more to it. There's so many misconceptions about it's just to be calm or just to relax. And actually, that's not the case, It's showing that there's so much science towards it that like decision making and different things like that can be strengthened the more that you practice mindfulness meditation. So if you think about a child that's 3 that's having a total tantrum, can't say what's wrong, shouting, screaming or whatever, but then you start introducing self-regulation techniques, that child can start to bring themselves down a little bit and then actually notice what's going on inside. So if I asked you, later on we'll have a little practice, if I asked you to close your eyes and register, how many of us have actually stopped today and thought, how do I feel today? How do I actually feel? And the more mindfulness you practice, the more that you can think about, start to register your own emotions and how you can develop them. So there's lots of different ways to begin in school. So here's just a few really simple examples. First of all, I'd always say try some meditations yourself. There's so many on YouTube for different reasons, different guided meditations. You can have relaxation meditation, just mindfulness, 3-minute breathing space. There's all different things that you can do. And also the Calm app. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah, so it's a really popular one. I love it because it makes me think, when you're looking through the day and you've got a really busy day, but you can still find pockets to practice your own mindfulness. There's other things like, mindful teeth brushing, mindful shower, but it's just having that short time to focus on the sensations you feel outwardly, but then you can shift the focus to the sensations you feel inwardly also. So stop, drop and breathe is the one that I tried to show you the video, but I'm afraid technology is not my strong point. But basically that's something you can do in the classroom, you can do at home with children. Mindful munching. Has anyone heard of mindful eating with the children? No. I did want to try it with you today. I had some marshmallows, but I think because it's not from the catering company, I'm not supposed to hand them out. So I'm sorry we can't do that today, but I will explain it to you how it works. So mindful munching is something that we always do it snack time now, and the kids will say to me, oh, Miss Green, you've forgotten mindful munching, let's do mindful munching. So all I do to introduce it is one small piece of food, can be a grape, a raisin, whatever it is they have, and you basically go through the senses really slowly. First of all, what do you notice? Look at the marshmallow like you've never ever seen one before, you know, and you look really closely, but actually you start to begin to notice things that you've never ever seen before, like the little bits of dust or light, the way the light hits it, all different things. So then you really slowly move through the senses. What can you smell? What can you smell on this side? What can you hear? And raisins squeak, believe it or not. If you squeeze a raisin, you can hear all sorts of noise. So there's all different things that you can do with the children, and especially with the younger ones, that's their vocabulary. You know, you're beginning to increase what language that they're using. This is the hardest bit. Put it on your tongue and just let it rest. What do you notice? So it's continuously using the vocabulary. What do you notice? What can you check in with? What can you feel? And then when you ask them not to chew it for a minute, this is normally the point in year one it goes a bit wrong because they can't wait, they swallow it, chew it, it's gone. But then you can start to guide them through that. And it takes 3 minutes, you know, and I always do it with the first bite of snack. But actually, as you get older, you can start building on that. So when you get to maybe teenage years, they're talking more about the fact that something like 70% of serotonin, which is like the kind of happy chemical in your mind, is produced in your dietary tract. So if you think about mindful eating in its fullest term, you're registering what is actually going into your body, you know. And then if you're eating a meal mindfully as an older child or an adult even, you know, there's so many different components to that. So you're being really mindful of the nurturing and different things, but also, you know, being aware of what you're allowing into your body to nurture. So there's so many aspects to mindful munching or mindful eating, but again, with the little ones, it's starting really early. What can you feel? What can you see? What can you smell? So as an adult, I would always encourage you to try it. I actually did my yoga training in India 2 years ago, and we had to eat every meal mindfully. And the first time we were like children, like giggling at each other and waving, and you know, because we weren't supposed to speak, we're supposed to practice mindfully. But then a few weeks, once we get used to it, actually the benefits, you know, and then I realised at times I'm eating too much, you know, I was more aware of what I was putting into my body. So again, as an adult, it's a really interesting thing to try, so do try it. Glitter jars, has anyone seen the glitter jars before? Really simple for young children. This little boy in particular is one that often uses his glitter jar. For him, he wants to use it as self-regulation. So sometimes he'll come in the morning and say, Miss Green, I'm feeling a bit silly. I'm like, okay, well, go and get your glitter jar, you know, and that for him is how he calms down. He just has a moment to himself. And I know as you get older, that's a bit more difficult when you're saying to a 16-year-old, go and get your glitter jar. But then you give them an enterprise topic, help them find something that they can make that's similar. You know, it doesn't need to be a glitter jar, but an older form of something that they can use for self-regulation, a visual self-regulation. So there's lots of things like that you can do too. Mindful movement is something that all schools could easily implement. Has anyone heard of cosmic yoga? On YouTube, yes. So that's a really nice one to start with. If your school haven't used it, it's something that you can start. But mindful movement is also really simple. Like, one of my favourite things to do is get the kids outside, shoes off, and a really slow mindful walk-in. It takes 2 minutes, and you think about yourself after you've been in this talk and you move to go to the next talk. You need to move and talk between lessons. So children have to do the same, you know. So even if it does take 10 minutes maths away, or don't quote me on that, but you know what I mean, it's like if you find the time that you can fit throughout the day, it's so valuable for the children. So if you have a look at mindful walk-in, different things, again, go back to that team. Which teachers are willing to try these things to see if they work, you know, and there will be somebody that's willing to say, oh, I tried that and it worked really well because, or this didn't work so well because. So use those staff members that you think about. So this is one of the kind of mindfulness setups that I've wanted to try before. Again, we've talked about the marshmallows. I apologise that I don't have any for you. And then there's some mindfulness practice ourselves, and then we can do a little activity with a card. So the first thing I want to do is explain to you that. The next thing that I'm going to say is probably the most important thing that you'll hear in this whole session. And that's mindfulness. The fact that everybody is just really waiting, you know, the focus is solely on what I'm going to say next for that second. That is mindful awareness. That is what we're trying to aim for ourselves and for the children. So if you think about how much You know, you drive to work, for example, and before you know it, you're there, and you think in through your nose and back out again. And keep breathing deeply right into your tummy. And as you begin to sit calmly, I want you to let the rest of the world melt away and just notice what it feels like sitting on the chair with a straight back. And as you breathe, take the next minute to check in with yourself and really notice any emotions that are there for you today. You don't need to try and change it. You don't need to fix it. Just notice that it's there. And for the moment, put it to the side to go back to later. And now, with the next deep breath, all the way down to your feet, I want you to breathe out any uncomfort or any negative emotions. And just be you alone for a moment. Give yourself this time. And on the next breath, very gently, start to wiggle fingers and toes. And when you're ready, open your eyes gently. So it's just a really short practice, and you'll probably know yourself all the different things that you're feeling just now. After a short meditation practice, you might feel tired, more calm, or you might actually think, gosh, that was nice to sit and think about myself for a minute. You know, there's lots of different benefits of it. So again, that's something that I'm sure lots of you have tried anyway, but you could probably do with the children. We've got time just for one more thing now. I've tried to there's little post-its at the end of the table, if you wouldn't mind passing them along. If there's not enough for everyone, just these, they look like this, just little bits of paper. So if you can pass them along to each other. And if not, you can just scribble on a bit of paper, it's fine. It's just a really short activity, again, something that you can do with children. There you go. So you'll know within your various settings, whether it's primary school, secondary school, there's different things. You know how it would work best for you. But all I want you to do for 1 second is, on that little bit of paper, you're going to write something positive to yourself. I am, and you choose your adjective, whatever you want it to be. So I just want you to spend a minute focusing on that little bit of paper. The rest of the world is gone. Think about you, I am, and then you can say whatever it is you want to say. Sometimes this can be quite uncomfortable because, again, you think, gosh, when's the last time I've thought about that, or given myself a compliment, different things. But have a think about what you'd like to say to yourself. I won't make you share it or anything, it's just only for you. So something that we did with the children, again, an easy way to start using this kind of language with the children and talking about, you know, noticing your emotions, noticing how you feel. We made little cards like this, but we changed it to you are, and then they had to gift them to each other and then keep it in their pocket. So then during the day, you know, if somebody said you are funny, then you could see the kids pulling it out their pocket and just like laughing and keeping it there. They really loved it, and it was because somebody said something really kind to them. They'd spotted something in them. But when you think about, if you write that to yourself, just for a second, notice how you felt when I asked you to do that. How did you feel when I asked you to write down something about yourself? How often do we do it? And then if I asked you to stand on the table and shout it out, notice how your emotions change. how it shifts, like, oh no, I don't want to do that, fear, your tummy might be funny, you know. So talking about mindfulness is ways that you can show that to children, like how do you feel? And children are much more vocal about it. You can say, well, come on, stand up here and shout it out, what could you say? And you see, we all laugh, but they can say things, oh, my tummy feels funny, or it feels all whirly. They've got their own language to talk about it. But again, an activity like that is so simple. And try it with staff as well. That's a really nice one, because again, as adults, we ask children to do so many things. But if we had to do them, it might be tricky, you know. So again, it's having that mindful awareness. So one other thing, oh gosh, I'm running out of time. One other thing we had, again, a whole school initiative, was about gratitude. So again, stemming from positive psychology, but we introduced gratitude to the children, we talked about it with staff, we talked about it with parents, and we had a week where gratitude was the theme. So here's a really short video, and then there's another QR code for it after. So I'm always the year one teacher with like chirpy music in the background. But the thing about it is, what I really enjoyed when I learned most about it is there's science to show that, you know, if you increase gratitude, then your subjective well-being can increase, you know, whether you're a child or a grown-up. So there's a lot of benefits of practicing gratitude, you know, and it's something that I find really valuable in my personally, and I wanted to share it with other teachers and staff. So although you see this around a lot, be grateful in different things. There is science to talk about the subjective well-being can be increased. Things like savouring that was mentioned there. So again, there's another activity. What can we do? So again, start with yourself. There's another little questionnaire on this link. There's a lot of kind of sciencey jargon round about it, but if you just look at the questionnaire and the results, you can see, you can measure it. You know, it's just like a simple measure. You don't have to do it. But what the real valuable thing is, the positive psychology intervention, where you write down 3 good things every day that happen, and then spend some time reflecting on what you did to bring about that good thing, because then you start to feel like, oh, well, I can bring more of that good thing into my life if you can acknowledge what it was. So it's a really lovely intervention, actually. Again, it's not for everybody, but if you're looking for things to start implementing into your schools, this is a really nice one. You don't even need to send out the questionnaire to parents and teachers, although our teachers did do it, and it was nice to hear them talk about, I'm actually really grateful, I came out really high, you know, and they were just loving to talk about those things. But again, they really enjoyed the intervention, just focusing on 3 things each day to be grateful for. The other thing I would mention as well is you think about what you're, as a person that's here, you're interested in well-being. You care about well-being and education. That's why you've came today. So something that I wanted to do, I was really lucky to go to the IPEN conference in Dallas last summer. And I got to speak to a man called Sir Anthony Seldon, who's a really interesting man who does huge amounts in the UK for well-being and universities and government and things. And he said to me, you've got so many ideas, you've got too many. Think about what it is you want to do. Where do you want to start? So he said, go and write it down and come and tell me tomorrow. So I went off doing my homework at night time, wrote down the 3 things. And for me, I thought, what is it? How am I going to start this journey? So this is what I came up with. And because I just stuck it on my mirror so I could remind myself every day. So something I would always advise is just think about you firstly in the school. What is your dream? What do you want to see the wellbeing journey look like in the school? You know, spend some time. Then the people in your team that we talked about that you're going to connect with, they can do the same. See if there's any things that overlap. What can you start with? It's as simple as starting with your 3 ideas. So, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them now. And please do keep in touch with me. I really would love to, you know, share along your journeys and offer any advice if I can, and also learn from you. So do we have any questions? No? There's one other thing. Oh, sorry, yeah.
I just wondered how, do you try to keep this completely separate, or do you link it into your moral and your social, where you can?
Yeah.
Because it does have such a strong relationship.
Yeah, of course. So in our school, we don't have like well-being separately as such. I think eventually it'll probably go down that route where there will be a kind of well-being curriculum as such. But I think that's the best step to encourage teachers and help us all have the confidence and things to do it. Because ideally, what you're looking for is a well-being ecology throughout the school, and that includes having everything interlinked and overlapped. So what we did, and what the next step, one of our next steps is to actually sit with the moral education curriculum, social studies, global citizenship, assemblies, all the things, and say, right, what things do we tick off already? So a lot of it is in moral education, you know, when you think about like growth mindset and stuff like that. But in year 1, we don't teach moral education, so I made sure that we, you know, made a little mindset game for them to play. So I do think they all kind of overlap, but then it's important to start implementing it into the classrooms as you can. Because I guess as well, like sometimes it comes top down, doesn't it? If you've got a head teacher that really enjoys the wellbeing aspect of things and knows the positive psychology, then it's easier to filter down. But sometimes it's more a case of, here's all the things that the teachers do, offer them up. So I would always say try and make the links. That's what we're going to do next as well. So it'd be nice to see how you do it, you know, if there's anything similar. Like I talked about earlier on, there's a couple of just takeaways for yourself. The Leah Waters, positive education professor, The Strength-Based Parenting. Please have a look at that book, it's really good. Do go and see David Bott's talk later about the Institute of Positive Education. They'll be fantastic assets to Dubai in terms of integrating positive education in our schools. There was another thing, there's a really brilliant app called YouHue. I don't know if anyone's heard of it yet. Has anyone heard of YouHue? YOUHUE. So something that we've started in our school as well is it's an emotional wellbeing app, and it's really good at helping children. Again, like we were talking about with the SNAP game, talk about that language, and they can start logging how they feel. So you can ask them a simple question, how are you, at different times throughout the day, and they can log the emotion on an iPad. It takes 2 seconds, and my year 1 classes did it last year. They were able to do it also. YouHue, so YOUHUE. Yeah. And these are all the social media handles that I have. Please get in touch with me. I'd love to speak with you more about your school, about what you're doing, what we can do, and also have those conversations about where we are and what we can do next. I think I'm running on time. And the last thing also